Today's video we're going to be showing you how to cure your own bacon. It's pretty easy. It does take a couple of weeks to do because of the curing process, but it's totally worth it. So grab a cup of tea, grab a drink, sit down and enjoy the video. So what you're going to need to do this bacon, well, first of all, you're going to need some pork loin. This is pork loin. Pork loin is used to make back bacon. We've been supplied this by Beacon Hill Butchers, you know, our favourite family butchers in the village. Absolutely amazing quality meat, and this will make some fantastic bacon. So I've got here just short of 3.5, maybe close to 4 kilos of pork loin. Don't worry about that because it's going to shrink a little bit obviously when it's cured, a bit like when we did the biltong, but also when you've sliced it, you vacuum pack it and you put it in the freezer and it will keep for a good 3 to 6 months at least. And if you're like me, 3 to 6 months is a pipe dream for your bacon to last. So now we've got the pork, we've got some other simple ingredients. We've got some maple syrup, we've got some sea salt, and we've also got some demerara sugar here. I don't personally bother putting in any of the salts with nitrates in it. I've been doing this for over a year now and never done it, and because it's for my own use it doesn't really matter. I don't like ingesting nitrates, but it's personal preference. So the curing mix for me is very, very simple. It's 2 main ingredients. We have sea salt and brown sugar. Now you can add other flavours to it. I have done that in the past. I love to play around with the recipes, as you know. We here at Surrey Hill Smokers, we're all about playing with flavour profiles and having a go at things ourselves rather than just buying stuff off the shelf. So in this case I've got around about 70 to 75 grams of coarse sea salt, which I just put into a pot, and I've got around about 60 grams of demerara sugar here. You can use soft brown sugar, and it's literally simple as that. Mix it together and that's as good as you get. Now that is the point where you would add flavours in. If you wanted to put some chilli in it, if you want to put some little bit of garlic or onion powder. I've done onion powder before. Mix it with the maple syrup. It is absolutely excellent for flavour, and when you cook it, it makes a whole new meaning to your bacon sandwiches on a Sunday morning. So it's as simple as that. So now let's get that rub onto the actual pork. So we've got our pork loin here. First thing we want to do, turn it over. Now the trick with this is we need to get the maple syrup onto the pork first. Kind of acts like a binder. We don't want to worry too much about the rind. I leave the skin on because when you cook it you get that amazing crackling sort of bit of bacon, and I love that. If you don't like it, you can ask your butcher to take that off. I personally like to leave it on. Got a tea towel as well because your hands will get a bit messy doing this. So first of all, I've got a measuring cup. I know roughly what a 1 cup of maple syrup is, so we'll just liberally sprinkle that on it. It doesn't have to be too much brain work on this, and just rub that into the meat and get it in there. Doesn't matter if the meat's cold or at room temperature, just get a good slathering of maple on there. A little bit more here, there we go. So that's that side done. So now what we're going to do is liberally sprinkle our mixture on of the salt and sugar and let it sort of sit onto we want it pretty well into it. So it gets into the meat and it really draws out that moisture. Now this is going to take around about 10 days to cure. It's not a 5-minute process. Now commercially they obviously do it a lot quicker, but we're not going to be doing it like that simply because we're at home and we're just going to be using the fridge. But it's a great thing to have a go at. It really is good fun, and it's so satisfying when you get it the other side and you've done it. So there we go. We've got all of our mix onto the meat side. This is where we want the mix because it draws that moisture out of the meat. We want to suck out as much of that moisture of that meat, and then it makes it into the bacon we all love and know. So we're just going to flip the bacon over. As I say, the skin side's obviously very tight. We don't need to score it or anything like that because that would spoil it when you start to cook it. But I'm just going to give it a liberal rub of maple syrup just to add to that yummy flavour profile. We don't need to worry too much about having, as I say, the rub into there or the curing mix into there. We just want to get that down there and get that covered. So now that we've got all those yummy ingredients all over our pork loin, or what is going to be our back bacon, we need to grab a couple of other items. We need a large plastic bag. This is a non-sealed one, so I've got a clip to seal it because we need to be able to make sure we get this bag sealed. There's going to be a lot of moisture coming out of this, and we're not going to take this bacon or pork loin out of the bag until the 10 days are up. So we need either a Ziploc bag that's watertight, we don't want ones with holes in it, or just a normal bag, and use a clip. So it really is as simple as lifting the pork loin into the bag, and away we go, and we'll seal it up. So there we go, we've got our pork into the bag. We just want to fold it over. We want to try and get as much of the air out there as possible. It doesn't matter if we don't get it all out, but let's try and get as much of that out, and then we're fine. And then what we do is we just twist the bag round, stick our clip on there, and we're good to go. Now, what this needs to be done is now put into a lovely cold fridge. Not your regular sort of, it needs to be nice and cold. I would recommend maybe putting it in a tray as well in case you get any leakage from the bag. Hopefully you won't. If you do, keep an eye on it and you do see it leaking, make sure you double bag it or put it into another bag, get the juices in there. We won't be opening this now for 10 days. We will turn this after 5 days, just so the meat gets a chance to, rotate. We've got it fat side down currently, and that's the way we'll do the first 5 days. The second 5 days we'll put the fat face up. So check back on this in 5 days. So 5 days in the fridge, in that dry brining mixture, we've now got the bacon. All of that mixture is dissolved, and there's a huge amount of water has come up. I'll do a close-up shot for you now just so you can see that. But that's exactly what I'd expect to see when we're curing this bacon. So now it's just the time to turn it over. Now, a little bit has leaked out. I'm not too worried about that. There's still a large amount of liquid in there, but that liquid needs to stay in there. Although we're drawing moisture out, that liquid's got all of the flavours in there from that dry brine. So it's as simple as just turning it over. So now the fat side is up, and now we'll leave that for another 5 days. So it's been another 5 days. Our bacon is now cured. It's come out beautifully. All I've done is I've taken it out of the bag, given it a wash in some cold water, patted it dry, left it on a bit of tissue because we just want to remove any extra water that we've just put into it from washing it. But absolutely, it's firmed up, the skin is firm, the flesh is actually now a lot firmer, and it's ready to go onto the smoker. So obviously we're not going to hot smoke this is going to be cold smoked. So we're going to use a cold smoking kit. And I'll bring you in closer and I'll give you a walkthrough of what we will use. So, as I said, we are going to cold smoke this. We're not hot smoking because we don't want to cook that bacon. We want to cold smoke it, infuse it with that lovely smoky flavour to give us some smoky bacon that we can fry up or stick under the grill on a Sunday morning to make a bacon sarnie. So in the kit you get a sort of this maze. It's probably very similar to the one you saw on our previous video where Gavin smoked some cheese. It's the same device actually. Put the sawdust in. We don't want to pack it in too tight because if you do, you end up with it going out. It needs to be loose enough so there's a bit of air through there, but you can either put a tea light under there or light it with a blowtorch. Then we move on to our dust. I'm going to be smoking this side of pork with whiskey oak wood today, just to give it a little bit of a different flavour. It should probably take about 12 hours to smoke. So, without further ado, let's bring you in and show you how to fill up the smoker. So it's really easy to fill this up. We just open this packet up. Yeah, you can tell that's a whiskey barrel it's been in. It's got a lovely sort of afternote of whiskey on that oak, which should give some real great flavour to this pork. So it really is as simple as just pouring it in. I'm doing it on a tray because we don't want to waste any of the sawdust because we have to pay for it, and we are not made of money. So do it on a tray, and then you can catch any of the overspill and reuse it and put it back in the bag. You probably won't need an entire bag to fill this. This is a 200-gram bag, so you should be pretty good set to fill this up and have some left over for another day. And also, depending on the size of piece of meat, you don't necessarily need to let this completely burn out. It depends on also the level of smoke you want. Again, it's totally down to you. There is no right or wrong way of doing this. As we like to say, do whatever you like and what works for you. So we've filled that up. Let's give it a wriggle around. We'll give it a little brush over. We don't want it, as I said, too compacted, because if we do that, it's a chance that it will go out. We want to be able to see the wires. I'll bring you in and show you a close-up here now of exactly what I mean by that. So as you can see, we've filled that up beautifully. It's all even and flat. We can see the guide wires for the maze round. We don't want it overlapping too much on these, because if we do, we could risk it starting far off into the other side, but that should be fine. as I say, it doesn't have to be perfectly level. It can be anything you want, and then as long as it's full, happy days. So let's get this lit and put into the smoker. I've moved one of the grates over. I'll bring you in closer to show you what I mean by that. So really it's just a case of lighting this sawdust and then getting it into the smoker and letting it establish before we get the meat in. So lighting it is as simple as just getting the blowtorch underneath of it. We see smoke start to appear. We can get under there, we can get it lit. We want a good ember going before we put it in. Oh, that smells awesome. And there we go. So we now need to get that bit of pork onto the smoker, shut the lid down and just leave it be. Here we go, we've got our pork into the smoker, set it fat side up. The smoke is just a tiniest wisp. We don't want clouds of the stuff. It's got to be a subtle, gentle smoke. Remember, this is a long process. It can take 6 to 12 hours. For a piece of pork like this, it's probably going to be going all day and into the night tonight. And I'll just leave it and keep an occasional eye on it, but it should be perfect. So let's bring you back in once we've smoked this meat. So we didn't film it last night because it was quite late. It was about 11:30 by the time I took the pork loin off the smoker. So it had a good, 11, nearly 12 hours of smoking. It already smells amazing now. So with cold smoking, it's not all about it being immediately done. It needs to sit, flavours need to develop into the meat, and it needs to have that sort of chemical reaction, should we say. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut this pork loin in half because it's a bit big for my freezer and it's already got a brisket and all sorts of stuff in there already, so it's a bit packed out at the moment. But what I'm going to do is cut it in half. I'm going to put it in the freezer for a couple of days. Now this is a tip that's been given to me by Adrian at Beacon Hill Butchers. He knows, he's been butchering for many, many years. The reason we're putting it in the freezer is to firm the flesh up. We want it firmer, because if we go to cut it and it isn't firm, it'll just tear the meat and you'll end up with it ruined. So what we're going to do is bag it up. What we need is a couple of these clip locks, or you can just tie a knot in it, or use a vacuum packer. It's really up to you. And a couple of large plastic bags. I'm going to cut this in half and then we'll put it into the freezer. I'll bring you in for a close-up shot of the pork, and you can see those beautiful colours. I wish it was smell-o-vision because it does actually smell amazing. That whiskey oak sawdust has done pretty well. So we're going to cut this in half. We want to basically just take it in half and put it into the bags just so it's a bit more manageable in size. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Nice sharp knife is an absolute requirement here though. This is a big lump of pork. It's thick and we want a nice clean cut. Look at the colour on that. That's absolutely amazing. Right, now we've cut that in half. It's just a simple matter of getting it into one of the bags and away we go. So we've got the bacon. It's been in, this is one half of it. Obviously I cut it in half as you saw. This is one half. It's been in the freezer overnight. Now this tip was given to me by our butchers. It can be done frozen. It can be done if it's slightly firmer. We've got it frozen here. But what we're now going to do is slice our bacon up. Now you can do this by hand or you can do this by machine. I happen to have a deli style slicer here. It makes life a lot easier. No, we produce and make a lot of biltong here for us to eat, and it just makes life easier slicing things, and you can get super wafer fine slices. But be super careful because this thing will literally take your fingers off. It is super sharp and won't take any mercy on your fingers. Anyway, let's get forwards and start slicing some bacon. So as you can see, we've got the bacon slicer here. We're going to do it slightly manual. It's going to be a bit tricky because I'm going to be doing it backwards so you guys can see it on the camera. But you'll get the general idea, and we'll get some close-up shots of how we're doing it as well. So as I say, the blade is super sharp. We'll turn it on. We're going to use it without the guard for the minute because obviously the piece of bacon is quite, the piece of pork is quite large. But we just need to be super, super careful. Just a bit mindful of what we're doing here. So here we go, we have some slices of bacon. I'm going to crack on and get the rest of this sliced. But as you can see, we have some beautiful bacon. We like it quite thick here. It's a bit more substantial. You can cut it as thick or as thin as you like. So here we go. There's our 3+ kilos of pork loin. We cured it, we've turned it into bacon, and we've sliced it up. And it looks and smells amazing. So I'm off to go and vacuum pack this into packs of 6 or 8, depending on how greedy I feel for Sunday morning breakfasts. But here you go. It's quite as easy as it is. It's not a quick process, but it's very easy to do at home. Have a go. You'll enjoy it. So thanks very much for watching. Make sure you hit those like buttons because it helps us out. Hit the subscribe button if you aren't already subscribed. Tell all your friends about us. We've got loads more cooks coming up, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. For now, take care.